Hi, I'm Karuna. I'm the founder and executive director for Mind Oasis. And with me today on Meditation Happy Hour is Karlie Lemos. How are you, Karlie?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying the winter here in Texas. I use that word lightly, of course, but it's been really beautiful.
Yeah, I remember when I lived in the Austin, Texas area, anytime it would get under 50 degrees, everyone would bust out their leg warmers and hats and mittens. And
Yeah. And it's been about that recently at night, and then it'll warm up to the 50s or 60s, and it's been really nice.
very cool. So I always like to start these podcasts sort of with the same question. What has your morning looked like so far?
Oh, wow. So my morning has looked more or less the same for many months now. I have a 10-month-old. So it's so drastically different from before that. I always had a morning practice, a morning routine to ground me that was very ideal. It doesn't look like that anymore. But I still try to keep some things in there. In fact, I'm adding something new in, and I'll get to that. So let's see. My alarm is set for 5:45. Sometimes I get up at 5:30. Usually if I wake up before the baby, just because we're so connected, she'll wake up within like 5 minutes after me. And I don't get her out of her crib until 6 unless she's upset, but she's usually pretty chill. So in that 10 minutes or so, I just kind of do a little bit of self-care in the bathroom, drink a little bit of water. Then I get her out of her crib and I nurse her, and we do our whole little morning routine with that. And then yeah, she plays in her playpen while I have my coffee, and then we go watch the sunrise, which has been like one of the pieces that I've put in that's been really lovely and grounding. And as she's gotten more active, we spend less time with the sunrise because she just wants to get out of my lap and go do her own thing, but it's still been really sweet.
That's awesome. How lovely. So you are a yogini, and I would love to hear a little bit about your journey to yoga, asana, but obviously there are 7 other limbs that most of us don't talk a lot about. And I know that you have a strong practice. So maybe a little bit about your journey, and then your relationship to some of the other limbs of yoga as well.
Sure. So it's long. I'll try to make it short because I've been practicing for about 22 years. So 22 years ago, I always say when people ask me this question that yoga was not a household word, right? It wasn't something that everybody knew about. It wasn't just as recognized and commonplace as it is now. So I didn't know what it was. I came from a dance background as a kid. And so this was after high school. I wanted to do something with my body because I had quit dancing, but I didn't know what that would be. So I started working out at a gym, which I didn't really enjoy, but I knew that I had to do something with my energy. And at that gym, they offered one yoga class a week. And I just took it because it was part of my, what I was already paying for. And I definitely, although I've healed from it largely now, would say that I tend towards being an anxious or, leaning towards that side of the spectrum, anxiety pattern. And at the end of the class, I was sitting still and I felt calm. And I didn't remember having ever felt that way in my life ever before. So I was just like, wow, there must be something to this. And that's a very short version of eventually finding Anusara yoga about, I'd say, 6 to 8 years after that. And that's when, even though I had already been practicing for a long time and had even started teaching at that point, that's when my physical practice really started to deepen. Yeah. And then with the other limbs, another thing I always say is that, everyone enters the yoga practice through a different door. And even though for me, I kind of entered through that door of, finding some calm, it was really more about the physicality, because what led me to the calm was what was bringing me back, right? I wasn't sitting and meditating, 22 years ago. That took a while. But what I always tell people is that even if you don't have the intention of sitting in meditation, even if you don't have any interest in the philosophy or any of the other limbs, if you just stay on the path, eventually it'll sneak up on you. It's like they come and they tap you on the shoulder, those other limbs, and you're like, oh yeah, you're right there. And you generally, most people will start to form a relationship with those other limbs.
I really love that. I love that. It's almost like there's no escape.
Right.
Like if you practice long enough and open-hearted enough, there's really no escape from the other more philosophical and less movement-based aspects of yoga. So you have an upcoming series on Mind Oasis, which is amazing considering you're in full-time mommy mode. Do you want to talk just a little bit about it and what one might expect if they come to your sessions?
So back bends have always been one of my passions as far as the physical practice is concerned. Prior to being pregnant, I practiced all kinds of really physically intense and, quote unquote, advanced back bends. And then postpartum, it's just been really challenging for me. I, in the beginning, was like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do a back bend again. But because I love them so much, and you mentioned, open-heartedness, that's part of what I love about them, is that big opening of the front body that we really don't get anywhere else. A lot of the yoga poses the movements we'll find in regular everyday or functional movement, but back bending, unless you are, painting a ceiling or like lying on your belly on your forearms in a sphinx-like pose, like every day, you're not going to do those movements in your body. Which is one of the reasons why I love them so much, because they're just such a different experience from our regular body movements. So in postpartum, I just, I'm a very tenacious person, so I just stuck with it, and, definitely starting from the beginning again. But I thought that might be an interesting place to share from, because I'm in this different body now, the way different than a couple of years ago when I could do everything that there was to do with my body. And so it's almost like I am a very seasoned teacher who's sharing through the lens of someone that's a beginner again. And I thought that might be just a really fun place for people to connect with me on.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So it sounds to me like the series would be appropriate for any level practitioner, that you would be able to guide them in such a way that it's safe and sound and all that good stuff.
Definitely. Safety with yoga asana is always kind of at the forefront of my mind when I'm working, especially with people that I don't know, but with anyone. The last thing we want is to be able to not continue to practice because we pushed ourselves, too much or did something that didn't make sense in our bodies. I think that one of the things I'm known for in teaching asana is being able to tailor the practice to whomever shows up, and kind of just adjust my sequence or my ideas based on what's needed in the room.
Very cool. And you called it From Snakes to Wheels. Can you talk about the title? I absolutely love
it. Yeah. So snakes as in cobra pose, but I was thinking about just being on the ground, and the back bends that are floor based on the front of the body, belly down back bends. So that'll be week 1. And then week 2 will eventually work towards camel shapes, which is like kneeling or standing on the knees. And then in the 3rd week, we'll work towards more of pressing up into Urdhva Dhanurasana or a full bridge, or even just regular bridge pose. So kind of starting from the bottom and then the middle height and then all the way up to the top.
Very cool. What do you think yoga asana has brought to your life?
Well, I mentioned like beginning again after having a baby, and this isn't the first time that I've had that experience. I found it through injury, through grief, and it's just a really beautiful sort of benchmark or touchstone, I think, to check in with one's physicality, which of course is related to all of the other aspects of ourself. I remember it's been about 6 years. 6 years ago, I had a traumatic brain injury. It was really bad. And I went to my mat and just tried to practice like nothing happened. And I really couldn't do anything. And I just cried and cried and cried and recognized that that was what needed to happen. Like I needed to have that experience of not being able to physically do much of anything so that I could recognize where I was, you know, because I think I was in a little bit of denial at that point with the injury. So it really helped me come to terms with how I needed to heal myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Karlie, what's your truth? And you can answer that however you'd like. It's a very open-ended question. What's your truth?
Well, no pressure, right? The first thing that came to mind was love. I think that my intention or my hope is to, as best as I can, and it's always a practice. I mean, I'm definitely not perfect, as none of us are, but is to move from a place of love and become a vessel for love and offer love and recognize that even though there is fear and even though there is a lot of pain and suffering in the world, I can do the best that I can to continually reconnect to that, not just for myself, but for everyone that can receive that energy.
Yeah, what I love about that is it really ties back to how love can be expressed physically through heart opening. I remember when I first started doing yoga, I didn't realize that a lot of us walk around with our shoulders kind of hunched forward. And now you can really see any yogi, you can tell a yogi from 10,000 miles away, right? Because and I haven't been practicing yoga asana lately. I'm hiking and running. I'm just doing other stuff, right? But like once you open your heart, you become an open-hearted person. Like I don't think there's any turning back. I don't think you can ever be the person who's protecting their heart like this. But what is also interesting about that is that then the back of your heart's open. So there's this sort of contraction and open. And in 2021, I would guess there will be some flavors of both.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you said like even the back of your heart is open. That's something I've definitely thought about a lot and shared and discussed with students a lot, is that like no matter what, your heart is open. It's just, to what degree, or is it what you're looking towards or what's behind you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. So your workshop, Snakes to Wheels, starts this Saturday, and it runs just for 3 weekends, right? The 9th, 16th, and 23rd of January. And you can find out more about Karlie's workshop at mindoasis.org, and you'll see a tab that says Learn. And then you just go to the yoga section and you'll find Karlie's beautiful face, and you can learn more about the series there. Karlie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was really fun.